for tuning in to the COVID-19 Improv Summit. We're talking about globalization in this episode, and we're going to break it up into two parts. We have a lot of panelists who have a variety of perspectives. We have folks from 6 continents represented. I believe it's 10 countries. I may be miscounting, but some very interesting, valuable conversation that I wish we had another half an hour at least with each of the participants. So you'll want to listen in and listen closely so that you get the benefit of each of the individuals who will be on this Zoom call. And then in part 2, you'll hear more from those folks as a reaction and some very important things at the end of even part 2. So a lot of wisdom along the way. So let's get into part 1 of the COVID-19 Improv Summit, talking about the globalization of improv. All right, well, welcome everybody to the Improv, the COVID-19 Improv Summit. We have an exciting conversation, well, at least an important one, I think, for us to have. We have people from all 6, at least heavily populated continents on the call today, which is in some ways something that we didn't see a lot of. I'm sure this is not the first call like that with this with improvisers, but it is a testament to how much closer we can be. Recognizing that we have challenges for early mornings and late nights, depending on where people are located on the globe. That is a challenge about how to do globalization well. That may come up a little bit. But I'm going to start with a question for all of our panelists. And maybe what I will do is I will start with the folks who are in Africa and Europe, just based on the fact that they have been up the longest of any of us on the call at this particular point. And let me just describe the question for you. When we think about globalization and I look at this topic, I have been paying attention to the conversation. And a lot of it is really wonderful, but I feel like there has been a tilt in at least the conversations that I have been hearing and seeing, which have been focusing more on the opportunities to, in some ways, export improv teaching. So I'm seeing teachers from the US and North America and maybe some in the UK, a little bit more talking about the wonderful aspects, and they are, about being able to now have people to interact with and in their workshops from 10 different countries in one time. But I'd like to think a little bit more for the mindset of an improviser as a learner. So, and I'll thank Patti for helping clarify some of this. I'd like to talk about I'm more interested in what a improviser in Seoul may have to teach an improviser in Chicago, for instance, than what an improviser in Chicago might have to teach an improviser in Seoul. Not to say that, again, those things aren't valid, but with globalization, I'd like to think about what you think, what is it that you can most gain from this new position as a learner? And so with that, why don't we start with Kaisa, if that's all right?
Hey, hello everyone. I'm really happy to see all of you. Some of you I know from before, and some of you I'm seeing for the first time ever. Really excited and happy to be here. I have been awake for one of the people that has been awake for longest probably right now. It's 10 past midnight in Finland, and I must admit that I'm not an evening person. So I'm going to try my best I'm going to try my average, let's say, to stay up and stay somehow in it with this conversation. When it comes to the question that you just asked, Whit, thank you for that. I have been, to me, this time has been very up and down and very roller coaster like, both in personal life and also in when it comes to improv and everything that has been happening, and how all of the workshops has been brought up and put up, and all the teaching of our own school has gone online, and at the same time I have had the opportunity to also interact with people from all over the world. What I can, I'm not sure if I understand the question right, like what I as an improviser or as a person can learn from others from other places, is that the question?
I think that is a good summary of it in many ways. There's an aspect of trying to understand how we can maybe best look at this as improvisers, about how to learn from others as opposed to teach others, to have sort of the focus of what can we learn from others, particularly new cultures to us in our experience, new streams of improv that may not have been available to us that now are.
I'm feeling really much like nervous and kind of like a lot of pressure, trying to find like a right answer, which I think it's an interesting thing, because that's something that I have been trying to learn for the last 15 years or so as an improviser, from everyone really around the world, everyone that I got to learn with from before, but also in this time, like when it is possible to go and learn from folks or come together online in a way that it maybe hasn't been possible before, or we haven't really been put into that position before. So I feel like one of the things that I have been trying to learn, and what I have had a lot of difficulties in during the whole time that I have been improvising, is still trying to find right answers. And I think that that's interesting. I'm trying to still be good, and I'm still trying to feel like, hey, and especially in the beginning when you said like, okay, Kaisa, you go first. And I'm like, oh, why do I have to go first? And so maybe that's one of the things, is like, I don't know how other cultures, or I do know a little bit, but I don't know as well how other cultures, how they grasp the idea of like how well I have to do. So maybe that might be one of those things that could be learned from others. But I would like to hear people talk a little, and maybe later on I will have more courage to answer more.
Well, I hope so, and I appreciate vulnerability right out of the gate. I think is positive, and as improvisers, especially on a topic as general as this, I don't think there are any right answers. It's learning from each other where we're at. Let me then take the pressure off of going first, and let's move to Damlola. You have your hand. If you could also just introduce yourself at least quickly, who you are and where you're from, and your perspective on that question.
Right, thank you. First and foremost, can I ask that if some of the questions can also be typed on the chat so that we can read again and we can look at it again. My name is Damlola, and I'm from Nigeria. I live in Abuja, Nigeria. I'm a global citizen. So, thank you. What I have is, what can we learn from each other from different places and countries? How can we learn? And also, how can we learn from each other? I guess that's your question. For me, I would start to say that we're all born improvisers, and right from childhood, we try to improvise, both doing theater and both creating things. So there are different skills based on different background. I am from Nigeria, I'm from Africa. Tandi is from South Africa, she's from Africa, but we both have different orientation about what improvisation is and how to improvise. And since we use, let me use this word, the same textbook to define improv, but the way we connect with our audience is different. In order to be able to practice at a global level, we need to be able to learn and see what works. So I would say this, as an improviser, as a young improviser, one of the key things I tried to do starting up was to connect with people. I remember, which you might remember that I actually posted about last year, a message on the, I think it was one of the groups where we met, to ask for someone who might be interested in coming to Nigeria to come improvise with our team and also train with my team and my kids. And I think it's about the skill. So the skill I practice as an improviser in Nigeria is different from what Cheng would practice in China. And for me to be able to practice at a global level, I need to be able to connect with Cheng to say, what do you know that might improve my work? And what do I know? What do I do differently that might improve your work? So skills, practice, business are things that we can learn from each other. I remember when I was in 2016, I guess, I also do playback, which is a part of improvisational theater where people tell stories from their lives and what had been enacted on the spot. I went to Memphis, Tennessee. I did an internship with a friend who runs the Memphis playback theater company. After about 3 months, I returned to Nigeria and I had to start business. And that's why I said business also is one of them. How does this person get grants? How can I domesticate that idea in my community, in my company? And I did that. I learned some skills. By the next year when I went to Memphis, she was asking me for secrets. The same person I went in to learn some of our practice and how she operates the business from was then seeing me as on the same level to share ideas and how she can also get more grants. Because after that, I got about over $100,000 grant or something like that then. So those are things that we can learn. The business side of improvisation that works for people, the skills that works for people, games and ideas that work for people. People come up and develop new ideas every day. And then those are things that can work. Some of these things you might need to now domesticate it and say, okay, how can I apply this thing in my community? How does it fit into my community? How does it fit into what I do? I hope I've been able to answer the question.
John, I think you may have had something, and maybe it was related to the question or maybe just to add on to some things that have been said. Do you want to jump in? And even if it's, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I had my hand raised because Kaisa was talking and I just wanted to talk to Kaisa, so that's what I wanted to do. No, that was really Damlola. Can you pronounce your name?
Damlola. Damlola.
Damlola. Okay.
Yes. Pronounce it by syllables.
Okay. Damlola. Got it. Damlola pretty much laid out, I think, all of the sociological things that I think of, areas that bring us together, business and in the arts of it. And so the only thing I think of to add, also, hi, I'm from the USA. I'm Jang Gebretatose. Hi, nice to see everybody. Very nice. I guess I would say the thing that makes me excited about this is that we can also, because it's global, we can now understand more about who we are individually. I know it's a bit selfish, but just based on how we relate to other humans, whether they're next door or across the globe, we're going to be able to understand more about ourselves. And I think that's pretty cool. But that would be the only thing that I would add. Damlola pretty much laid it out for me, and I have no other insight. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
You can find him on social media at John Gebretatose. Katie, how about we move to you, if that's all right?
Sure. Like Kaisa, I was like, please don't make me go first. I have nothing to say. And now I'm like, I have opinions. But I agree with Damlola that there's this sort of best practice thing that I think we've already been okay at. You know, we have millions of Facebook groups and other ways of communicating. There's always been groups that are like, oh, how do you do this aspect of your festival, or how do you do a good ensemble team, or, you know, there's this kind of global thing. But I think, and this is just my experience, maybe that revolves a lot around festivals, maybe. And for stuff like, you know, drop-in classes or courses that are now more available because they're online internationally, that's something that we're sharing best practice on a little bit better than before. So, you know, if you have people globally coming to your like little drop-in, normally you just have kind of local people. I know in London, it would mostly be London people, or, you know, maybe a couple of people traveling through town who are like, I love improv in my country, I'm just going to pop in. But now we're seeing every drop-in we do with the Maydays in the nursery is, you know, at least half of our class will be from all over the place, which is really cool. Loads of people improvising in a second or third language, which is amazing. So I think we're learning how to, also added to that, is everyone's learning online for the first time-ish. You know, obviously everyone's got different levels of experience of this medium, but certainly we're doing long form in it in a different way, or in a kind of newer way than before. I think it's pretty new. I think that's fairly safe to say. Not because it's not been possible, but we just mostly up until this point have preferred it live. So I think that's both those things are a great leveler. For a lot of people, it's really hard, financially hard, and work hard to maybe attend festivals and stuff. You know, a lot of us are very lucky, and then we get to travel a lot of the time. And for people who can't do that because their job or their family, or just they're differently abled or whatever, now it means that we can kind of start from scratch together. And that, you know, that's really nice. I feel like I'm learning that, being humbled by it, you know. Like, you can't go, well, I've got all this experience applied to this, because we don't really. There might be some people that are better at the tech, or, you know, getting the right audiences, or making it look shiny. But it's trying to push those things together, and we don't all have all that expertise. So, yeah, I think humbling is a really good thing. And I think, having people in classes who are like, this is my first improv class. So you can't be like, well, you know what it's like on stage. You're just like, okay, this is what it's like. And they almost have an advantage because they're not passing the change through something else. So I'm really appreciating that as well. I'm kind of like, yeah, this is what it is. That's great. That's very good. I think the thing that I really enjoy is the similarities. Like, no, who was saying? Someone was saying it's like we all learn improvisation differently. Was it you, Damlola, saying that? How it's kind of similar, obviously at its heart. There's that agreement and lots of different things. But it's the similarities that mean that we can all just jump into the same class or show without it being too hard. We're just like, here's where the buttons are now a bit more, right? So that's quite nice. Yeah, I think access, being a bit better for access. Like I could, my brother has multiple sclerosis, so I could just email him and go, you can come to one of my improv classes now, because it's not in an inappropriate building and 2 hours away from you, which is really nice. And it's almost ridiculous now that you can try that before. I mean, maybe that's pretty obvious. Yeah, that's it. That's my ramble.
It is obvious, but it wasn't obvious. And I think we're all kind of waking up to the fact that this will help people with different abilities or access to facilities or things like that to move into the community in a fuller way.
Oh, I have one more thing to add, actually, which is just that that I think we're being more open to learning from non-improv, from, you know, like good YouTubers and podcasters and stuff. I think we're being a bit better at going, actually, we could borrow some skills from, you know, Greg that has a cooking show, or you know, Diane who talks about her cats. We realize that they've got their shit together a little bit better than us in terms of broadcasting entertainment in this way. So I think it's a good kick in the butt for our longevity to have to look at other ways of broadcasting what we do. Yeah.
Patti?
Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see everybody. I completely agree with everything everyone has said. It is a really nice opportunity to connect and to learn from each other. And we have this beautiful starting point that we all share. Something I'd like to add into the conversation that's maybe taking it from a slightly different point of view, is I think conformity kills art, and groups that are starting out, or groups that maybe don't have a very long history of improvisation, or maybe multiple companies, shouldn't look to other improvisation groups as having the answers. And I think sometimes that happens. So when you've got someone who's new or emerging, or a younger community, they assume that countries that have been doing it longer know how to do it. And so they might have made all of these beautiful discoveries, very unique and individual to their culture, to their way of storytelling, to their experiences in exploring the work. And as they connect with other communities, they start to change their own language. They start to pick up and use words, maybe not by choice, but through example, because they assume that's the way it is. For example, the word team. You know, this is something that's been moving through where people go, we've got a team, our house team. Not every improv company calls their group a team. Some call it a group, some call it a cast, some call it an ensemble. So even that extension of language, if people are choosing to use it because they go, this is a style, a form, a group that we relate to, aspire to, fantastic. But if they're using it because they go, you've been doing it longer, therefore it is the way, this is what I worry about. Because then we lose fresh voices, new interpretations. And every culture has a different and rich history of art. It's music, it's stories. And I think maybe as teachers, we could be sensitive to that and try to ask for suggestions to stimulate scenes that do embrace the world. You know, so instead of saying, two people meeting at a chain that could be an Australian chain, an American chain, a British chain, say, where would be a place that you would meet? Or what's a holiday in different parts of the world, or sorry, it's 7 a.m. here, so my brain fires up and then goes to sleep. I just think there's ways that we can embrace that, and we can lead through example and sharing, but also encourage more individual voices.
I'd like to piggyback on that, or to follow with that, and also a comment that you made, Katy, about learning from different disciplines as well. Felipe, my impression of your work is that it is you draw from different streams, not just improv. There's clowning and there's other aspects, and maybe in some of the I think in South America, and maybe it's across the Spanish-speaking improv world, it feels to me that there has been more of a drawing from those things over time, which add its own sort of layers and complexity and depth to it. Can you speak to how your experience, both personally and maybe broader than that in your particular improv community, can teach the world, and what this globalization moment may say about what someone like you would have to offer that is different than what they might have experienced before?
Well, just my personal experience has a very particular starting point, because I learned improv by discovering it. I didn't know that improv existed, or improv was a genre or a thing you could do. So I started in a theater group in the university. I was studying industrial design, and with a friend We learned some improv exercises that the teacher, the director threw us for building the shows, right? So we started playing with those exercises and just having fun like two idiots, just having fun and playing. And one day we told the director of the group that we had a very crazy idea. And he said, like, what is it? And then we asked him, like, can you imagine to do an improvised show that's nobody knows what is going to happen, and then you do a show? And then he just laughed that day. But the next rehearsal, he said to the rest of the cast, like, okay, Felipe and Beto, they have something to show you. And we were like, what? And he said, like, you told me you wanted to do something, so don't tell me, do it. And I remember that day as the craziest thing that happened to me. It was like a trip. It was just insane. We were playing, we discovered a code that every time some idea was over, we turned off the lights and then we turned the lights on again, and we kept doing stuff. And we did that like for 40 minutes. And then after that, all the members of the group came to us and, wow, it's great what you're doing. How long have you been doing that? And we just say, like, yeah, 40 minutes. And and then the director, of course, he knew that improv existed. So he was very clever, and he started pushing us, like, oh, you should try to put more stuff in that show, and maybe put a show together and show it in a place where storytellers and musicians used to do their stuff in the university. And then we were like, we need to have more tools. So we started doing some clowning and some stage fighting, and I got seduced by the circus, but by new circus, and then I became an acrobat and a juggler, and we started to do improv in that way, with a very physical and a very clowny approach. But we never, until that point, we haven't seen any improv group, so we didn't have anything to compare our work with. So like 4 years after doing that, we saw the first group, and it was like, wow, what is this? And then the next year we went to Amsterdam to the festival there, and it was very, very amazing because we came there, we did our stuff, what we normally did, and people were like a bit shocked, like, where did you learn this? From who? And we were like, what is it? What is it? What you see? Because for us, we're just doing the same that you people are doing. We didn't, and in that point, we didn't notice any difference. It was like, yeah, we are doing the same, a little bit more surreal or a little bit more crazy stories or stuff, and a lot of clowning into the scenes, but nothing very clear. And it was through time that I realized, like, it's right. We have a very physical approach to improv, and as Patti said, I started connecting to improv in many places. I am very lucky that I can travel, and I've been traveling around the world doing this. And I started learning from different sources, and in a way, not good or not bad, I think I've been taking a lot of those sources, and sometimes I wonder how much I have lost from that beginning that I had that was so crazy. And I don't say it's a bad thing. Of course, I enjoy what I do, and I try to keep that thing that that I love about the physical improv, if you can call it some way. And we kept pushing it and researching, and until we did like a long form without words, and it's very physical and slapstick and also clowning. And now this thing, the
rectangle
right now, I feel is kind of threatening me. You know, like I feel in this small box and I need to move, and then I don't know where can I go. And I've been very like this with the online stuff. And I've been asked to teach online, and I said yes because we like risks. But I didn't have like this impulse, okay, now I'm going to teach online. So I got this invitation from Berlin to teach, and I did it. And this is a whole new world. And now I'm trying to fight against that threat, like, okay, how can I teach my style through this? How can I use the body with this? How can I teach movement through this? So as Katy said, I've been watching stuff and movement teachers, there's acrobatic teachers online and stuff like that. So I guess it's pushing us to really apply what we teach and like adjust, accept, say yes, take the risk, all those things. And it's wonderful in a way. So in that sense, I think we can learn from everyone as in the normal life.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story, and actually one of the aspects of the question, I think, relates to one of the things that you said when you came to, and a shout out to the festival in Amsterdam. So Sven, I'll come to you afterwards. Maybe you were there. The uniqueness of what you had put together that maybe wasn't even known by you. When we are in these small little rectangles, I don't want to lose those things. I don't want to not be surprised by what you come up with on your own, or what someone in another part of the world might come up with, because with online, it is so limited in the box that we have, I think, a greater danger of being in too narrow of a viewpoint unless we're very careful about it. Let me go to Sven, and then I'm going to go to Hellena next. And then Tandi is still up. So Tandi, I'm going to go to you after this. That's the order we're going to follow. And then we've got a couple more to weigh in. But Sven, I don't know if you remember that moment. You can speak to that, but I'm interested in your answer as well.
Well, thanks for having me, first of all, and hi, everyone. I remember Beto from the Improv Festival. I don't remember Felipe from back then. I wasn't involved with it yet, so I'm sorry. Okay. I think I really relate to what Patti said. I feel like in our festival in Amsterdam, we always try to have people from different backgrounds, people from different theater styles. We try to bring the whole variety that improv can bring. And we've had groups from very different cultures than my own, but when we saw their improv, it was like, hey, this is just North American improv, because they were taught by North Americans, and that's great because there's a lot of knowledge there and there's a lot of experience there. But there's so many beautiful ways of making theater all over the world. It would be a shame if we forgot about that and then just introduced North American style improv in Holland, in the Philippines, in China, in wherever, right? I would love to see Japanese improv based on Japanese theater, not on North American improv. So I'm always a bit afraid that if people are very strong teachers, that the gurus, we have a few here, and people just be like, this is what it's supposed to be like, and then they forget their own culture, and that would be a shame. So now with online, I think there's an opportunity for people to follow these workshops, and there's also a risk they will just feel like, oh, this is the way to do it, because you can see that some people are experienced, the teachers, so you think, oh, this is the only way to do it. And I would hope that's not the case. And personally, for me, the whole online thing, I was also asked to teach. I was like, nah, I'm basically yes-ending the hell out of this COVID. And to me, like improv, what I like about it is being in a room with people and doing that thing. And it doesn't really appeal to me to do it online. So I've not really done it. I've taken a break from improv basically, and there's a lot to do in my house also. So that.
Hellena?
Hi everyone, this is Hellena from Seoul, Korea. Nice meeting you, and thank you for having me here, and thank you for suggesting me, Joe. and I started improv 8 years ago, and when I started improv, there were no Korean improv here. I'm very similar situation with Felipe at the time. I never heard improv before, and I never knew there is improv existing in the world. And 8 years ago, when I know improv, I fell in love with improv directly, and I started in English with the foreigner group in Seoul. And after 2 years, I wanted to start Korean group, but I didn't know much about improv. So 2014, I've been Canada, Calgary, and I took Keith Johnston class. And also I've been Chicago to take IO 5 weeks intensive. And when I came back from then, 2014, I started teaching improv. So that was the first Korean improv school in Korea. And also I made a Korean improv team, which name is Improv. Our team name is Improv. Still, we are very small group, but I'm very proud we are the first one, Korean one. And yeah, thank you. So 2014, I was very focused on taking the content from the teachers and the theaters, but I went back 2016. At the time, I more focused on how they teach and how they establish their communities, and also how they learn the theater. So I observed the theater system, improv training system, and the teaching skills. So when I came back from then, I could expand my teaching skill and also classes and levels. And actually 2019, last year, I also went to LA and Chicago and Minneapolis. And this time I learned more like a culture and safety space, how to make a safety space and how to make our ground rules. And we need ground rules for the show and team and group mind and also audience too. So I learned a lot from that. And also same with the Felipe. We also attended the Shanghai Improv Festival and also Singapore Manila Festival. And I've met Cheng and Nick there. And there were so many groups and so many different styles. So at that point, I realized, yes, we need to embrace our roots. And also 2018 in Manila Festival, the theme was embrace your roots. So in Singapore Festival, in Manila Festival, we created our own form based on our Korean culture. So I thought Korean culture is mostly mainstream is K-pop right now, like BTS. So we did K-pop. It's based on K-pop. So we did dance and we were idol group and we made the audience as a fan club and we did interview and we did flashback scenes and that was very successful. I'm very proud. And also, if you saw The Kingdom on Netflix, it's showing Joseon Dynasty. We have a very long history and our unique long history. So we are working on making that kind of a long form too. So yeah.
Do you find that because I know you also have I think you described it as a North American style theater there. Do you find a difference in the way audiences respond to the things where you have drawn from your culture as opposed to some that may be more drawn from an outside structure or type of show or improv?
Could you repeat again?
So you have your K-prov, which is very much based on the culture of the day. And as I understand it from our conversation leading up to this, that there is also a community of improvisers who may be more doing a North American or US style improv show in Seoul.
I would say mainly our team and also the other groups, the other teams, we all do basically North American style because the foreigner group started based on whose line is it anyway, and Korean group started based on Chicago IO style. And nowadays, we have Alex Park, we have more improv coaches, but 6 years ago, I was the only one, and I only learned from IO at that time. So, yeah, basically, we are doing short form comedy sports and long form, Herald, everything. So, I would say mainly we are doing North American style improv, but we are trying to make a Korean improv style more and more. Yeah.
Wonderful. Tandi, let's go to you next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tandi from South Africa, Cape Town. Hello, everyone. It's such a big question, and my brain is just going in so many different directions. But just to give you guys a little bit of an idea of how improv kind of started in South Africa in the early 90s, actually. I'm not entirely sure who was the person that came to Johannesburg and taught some form of kind of loose moose, Keith Johnston teachings, but it kind of exploded. At that time, when I say exploded, I mean in a very small area, because theatre in South Africa culturally is just for the elite. So let me be very clear about that, which I'll get to later. But we kind of got introduced to this idea, and we got very, very excited about it. And we did it for a very long time. But being South Africa, we were very isolated, and we didn't have access to anybody really, given the political climate, etc. We were kind of just doing stuff on our own blindly, I guess, in the dark. And we started to find our own information and knowledge, and we started to find our own creative ways of making this thing that was improv into our own kind of thing. And I think it was a few years later when we kind of ended up being invited, a few of us, to Orlando, of all places, Disneyland, to perform in an improv tournament or something. And we really were completely out of our depth. We were like those cousins at the wedding. We were like, oh, it was just like super fast paced and like disco lights, and like it was full on tournament. And we were like, oh my God, we were terrified. And we felt like we really were, we didn't know what was going on. This wasn't the improv that we'd kind of found on our own without any kind of teaching, I guess. And, you know, cut to all this time later, you know, over the years, we've been very lucky to have some international gurus, Joe Bell, and Katy, who've come along to South Africa, woohoo, and they've come and taught us, given us their knowledge. And I've obviously also met Nick and Patti at Improvention, which is another story, blew my mind. So what I'm trying to say is that the little bits that we've managed to have, the access that we've managed to have over the years, has really just made us better and stronger. But at the same time, we're very protective of this own kind of thing that we have. And I think that the thing that we have is based on our cultural references, it's based on our connection, it's based on our stories. And what we have is that. And I think that we're quite protective of that. And I think what I love to learn, always I love to learn, is about other people's stories. So for me, it's about connecting to other people through their stories. And when I get on stage with someone from another country that I don't know, the only way I can do that is if I connect to them through their stories. So I think that's the most exciting thing for us to learn, if we are able to have the chance, because let's be honest, the exchange rate's not doing us any favors. If we are able to get out and go to festivals, then we can engage with more people and learn more stories and connect with all different kinds of cultures. I think as South Africans, our biggest thing, you know, being in a country that has 11 official languages as well, is finding ways to communicate that are non-verbal. So in that same trip to Orlando all those years ago, the team that we connected the most were with the Japanese, because it was a small Japanese team, because they didn't speak very much English, and we were South Africans and we had very thick accents, and no one understood our sense of humor. They just didn't get it. We didn't have the same cultural references either, but this Japanese team and us, we kind of made our own time, and we connected, and we found a way of communicating non-verbally. And for me, that's an exciting thing about improv, is finding ways to connect without the words, beyond words. I think as South Africans, that's something that we really are desperate to learn, is to find ways to connect with people without speaking. And I've just spoken a lot. So yes, the more the better. Bring it on. Come here. It's cheap for you guys. It's not cheap for us. Come. You can stay at my house.
Well, hopefully we will be able to travel more soon. But those experiences do inform a little bit about what it is like on the online world as a taste of it. It's a very different kind of thing. But I just want to note two things. One, you talked about the importance of being protective of what is unique to your context. And I think that's important all the way through. And if it's not identified, identify it and make it happen, you know. And the other aspect of things too that I just want to note on this conversation is I am feeling just the wealth of knowledge and perspective that's on here, and how little of it per unit of knowledge here that we're getting in this conversation. But the sum of it is great. I will just make the point that these are people to follow and track and learn from beyond what you get today. We have three voices that I think we haven't heard from yet. And I want to go back to Kaisa, give her another run at this. Before I get to Kaisa, I'm going to ask Cheng to jump in. And then you guys can finish who we're going to finish with. I'm going to ask Cheng just to speak a little bit to what I think is a bit of a unique aspect, just based on the progression of this disease and the need to be in quarantine earlier in China. I feel like the online world you had to experience earlier than the others here have. And can you speak to what that experience has been like, not just for you, but what you are seeing in at least the Beijing improv community, or I think you can also speak to the Chinese improv community more broadly.
Yes, I think we are in the early stage to just being a quarantine, and I think there's something we can do as an improviser or as a learner for this. So I started thinking, oh, this might be okay that I can bring teachers together online. Before I organized like teachers and ask them to we have to fly them here, and we meet face to face in persons. But now it becomes easier. I think we started learning that this might be a really good form that we can come and learn and study online. So I started to find there are like some great changes as long as the students they get online, and we are having a very good time together. So I think for people are start quarantine together, quarantine individually, they need more spiritually or mentally, by telling stories, by improvising together. I think that's what improv means to them. So we're lucky we got Joe Bill to teach us. We also got Patti Stiles to teach us. So their way, I think, I agree with Tandi. So if we bring great teachers to come online to teach us, so their way we can trigger more thoughts, and we can finally find a way how we improvise here locally, either in Mandarin, either in our own cultures. So also at the same time, we find out that there are more chances over there because we have our traditional culture or performance. For example, opera. For example, the other form of arts. So and because we have great teachers, so then we can have other thoughts that, okay, how would we do according to our culture context or according to our art forms? So now it shows that the China is opening more and more to the world, and we are collecting better and easily or more efficiently than ever before because we have big populations here. So what I would like to do is that from this coronavirus, and we are collecting to teachers who are able to inspire us at the same time, we inspire each other. Or I think we can give new thoughts to maybe teachers who have been teaching here, like Joe, maybe Patti, maybe you have new thoughts after you are teaching our people here. So that's a way we exchange our ideas and perspective and share a very beautiful moments together. Yeah.
Kaisa?
We still have Joe and Nick as well. They haven't said anything. Do they want to?
Oh, we'll get to them. We'll get to them.
Okay, cool. Okay. Well, we'll see. No, Patti. Okay, I have been listening to everyone. Thank you. And I have been trying to also gather thoughts about, which I actually thought that maybe I should have somehow prepared better in advance, thought about this more. But now I'm back for round number 2. And there are a few things that I was thinking about when I was listening to all of you going. When Sven, you were saying like it's not the same, or like you have been feeling like I'm not kind of like taking a break of it, or like when Felipe was describing the fact like how am I supposed to do the physicality within this box and whatever. I think that it is okay that it's not the same, and I think that it's really important to recognize that it is not the same, that we're not aiming for the similar experience when we are going to be online. And that there are several different things that are very, very different. I think that we need to bear that in mind. The other thing is that the possibilities of online learning are, I think that they're becoming bigger and bigger each and every week. I feel like when we started with our company or with our school, when we started, it was, of course, a learning curve for everyone. It still is that. But at the moment, it's like when everyone has had a time to maybe come in terms with it a little bit, we're learning, we're becoming more curious, and we're starting to look at different ways that we can do it. And I think that that is a really nice thing, that also students are coming to classes in a way like, instead of like, but it's not the same, it's like, it's not the same, so what can we do? And I think that that can be very valuable. And then the idea of the cultural exchange that has been many times mentioned now, which is a wonderful thing. So because like this, we are so easily in the same room that then that gives us the possibility to really learn from each other in every meeting. And I think that as teachers, that could also be our responsibility to remind everyone from that. Not only taking it for granted, but go like, hey, because we are from different places. And I think that it's interesting that even in this, this comes to the second to last. Now I have a lot of things to say because I've had a lot of time to listen. So, but I'm almost done. So the second thing, or the third thing, I guess, is like, it's interesting that even in this get together that we're in now, is like English is dominant because we're all speaking in English. And some of us are native English speakers and some of us are not. And even with that, I think it's really interesting that the way I pay attention, for example, or what I'm listening to is like when someone is a native English speaker, sometimes it can be like, I get this really well. Sometimes it can be like, oh, they're so fast, I can't get it. Sometimes when someone has another kind of accent, or they're thinking on their second or third language, I might react to it in a different way, or I might somehow, what's the word? This is me on my second language. Like I might grade it in a certain way, in a different way. I give something more respect because I understand it better than something else. And I think that that is also a very interesting point when it comes to the fact that when I see something online, for example, when I'm on Facebook and I scroll past things that I don't understand, right? It's in a different, like, it's my friend from another country. It's somebody from Poland, for example. If it is in Polish, I don't care because I don't get it. I don't understand it. And it has been really interesting now, which is just one of the things that I have been seeing, that when people have started to put their shows online, there are also different kind of podcasts, the shows, different kind of things that have given them subtitles, for example, or stuff that has the possibility of me to go kind of into that culture in a different way that it has not been before. And if I think about it in real life, will I go and see, sometimes of course I go and see shows that are in different languages than the ones that I understand, but this is giving it giving it a better possibility. And now my last point. About the idea of like coming from Finland and how I started this, I was thinking about different cultures and different way. Like I was apologetic at the beginning of like, I don't really know if I have something to say and I feel like I'm going to mess it up. And I think that is partially from coming from the culture that I'm coming from. It's like we as Finnish, this is huge generalization now. But I'm going to do it anyways. So we as Finnish people, we really like to go by the book. This is a country that is based on rules, and it is a lot of those things are really good because it keeps us safe, it keeps a lot of things. But why I think that improvisation is so important for us in this culture where we live in as well is the fact that we get the permission to go a little outside of the rules. And for the Finnish, like what if there's something that we could give at the end is like, I feel like the style that we do here is super dark. It's like we don't call it improv comedy, it's improvised theater. And we are in a different country, they make a few years ago, I was in Canada in a festival and we did a show and it started, somebody said this afterwards, like it started Canadian, so kind of loose, fun, everything. There was also my friends from Sweden there. Then it went pretty Swedish, they said, towards the end, so it becomes heavier. It kind of like, then at the end they said like it became Finnish right at the end before it anyway. It was like everybody wanted to, as you know, when the sun doesn't shine, all that stuff. So I think that, I don't know why I kind of like ended on a note. What I just wanted to say is like, it is a cool, really, really cool thing that we have the possibility in a different way now when we are here to share in an instant moment, and with also those folks who don't have the possibility to go and see everybody's country and see how every different group is doing their own thing, which has been said several times already, that it's important that we don't only take, this is okay, if everybody's speaking English, then that's the main thing. Or if we have this strong going improv world of doing it in a certain way, that's not the only way of doing it. Is so that when we have the possibility to go to different countries, we can do it online here, which I think is really cool. Thank you for this, and adieu.
It was a very good round two. A very good round two. Just a couple of thoughts that I'm going to come to Nick, and then Joe, you will have the task of just putting a bow on all of this. And but an element of what I think you said, Kaisa, has it sort of is, when we teach, we are also learning, right? And maybe when we are with multiple cultures in a single workshop, we need to be that much more conscious of the learning that we're doing as teachers as well, and that will make it a richer experience, not just for our students, but for ourselves, to think of this as a much more of a shared experience. I had a second thing that I was going to jump off of in terms of what you said, but I've lost it now. But I know what it was. In terms of having access to different styles, I think it's been a great experience for me to at least tune into 15-20 minutes of an improv show in a language that I don't understand, and watch and see what you can learn and pick up from that experience. And I think probably as a native English speaker, it's probably, I need to do that more than those who are more fluent or at least conversant in multiple languages. But that is the other side of the conversation as well, that I think can be very, very useful. Nick, I'm going to ask for you to speak on this, and also maybe share a little bit, if you would, about what your experience, kind of like Sven, in terms of with the Improvention conference, how that may inform how to look at globalization with online as a component of it as well. So Nick, I'll turn it to you.
Hi everybody, I'll actually use my voice now instead of miming my words. Thanks, Whit. Yeah, well, so I'm in Canberra, Australia, and for a long time I've been running the festival, chiefly known as Improvention to Improvisers. And look, I guess I would start that discussion then, talking about improvention, perhaps from in the same way that some of you from more distant or isolated parts of the world would start your conversation. That when I began that festival, I didn't know how anyone else ran a festival. I'm too far away, so I just assumed what I thought were sensible, practical solutions to how to have an international festival that weren't chiefly what other festivals were doing. And then later on, when I got a lot of exposure, found out that actually it wasn't happening at that time as much elsewhere. And I think the chief example of that goes to what Patti was saying about the word team. I actually never had a team. I've had a company, and it seemed completely logical to me, particularly with the tyranny of distance in Australia, that you would invite someone who you thought had a lot to offer, a director, performer, teacher, who would teach us some stuff, and then the other people at the festival would perform it. That seemed pretty obvious, and basically the only way that it would be feasible financially as well, where we were. And of course, there are advantages of the multitude of ways of doing it. But one of the great advantages there, I guess, was that we would have great improvisers from around the world, some really well-known people who we were lucky to get. I guess Australia seems like a exciting destination for people to come, so they would come. But we'd have people who were, extremely well-known, my gurus, who would go home and say, man, that was really interesting because I got to play in 3 or 4 different styles of different that I'd never done before in all of my years of doing this. And I think, I'm not sure how much from our little festival, but I've noticed touring now that approach is becoming more common, not necessarily taking over festivals, but the number of mixer shows and so on is getting more and more, or at least becoming a very regular part of most festivals. So the joy that people could Stiles was really interesting, and now I guess there's this third style in the touring zone, which also is partly made possible by our ability to connect online in advance, which I would call the project style. So we have teams or troupes traveling and presenting their product at a festival. We have the mixer shows, but now we have these projects made up of a few people from different countries, perhaps, who might meet 3 or 4 times a year to present their product. So it's a project that they keep going rather than a team that's together all of the time. So I guess when you said to introduce prevention, that's one thing. And I guess the other thing that was always part of that, as the name suggests, is that there's a convention of have discussions to discuss how things are different and what we can offer each other, as well as doing it through practical workshops and and performances. So to skip on, I think I'll just leapfrog from what Kaisa was frog from. No, that's it. That when you go to often when we would get teachers from a place that had one particular influence for a long period of time, it would be much harder for them to change, or I guess to embrace change. So we've in my community, we started from a standpoint of having lots of different influences come into our city. So our students were open to different styles, and teachers would remark that one thing about our community is they didn't have to convince them that a different way was a good thing. But sometimes we would get teachers that really didn't understand change at all and were very set in their ways. So this is where it connects to Kaisa. I think the most dramatic example of that is we've had some teachers where you'd learn a technique and you'd say, wow, that's very interesting. So perhaps we could apply it to this or this. And the teacher might say, but that wouldn't be funny. With this look of complete confusion that how could anything have any value if it wasn't funny, for example. And we've got nothing against comedy, but it really struck me the first time how if we go down a single path, we can forget our basics. And I think that's the main thing I want to add to this. We can learn a lot more additional skills, and we can present our own unique skills. But I think the diversity helps us to remember the basics, such as embracing change, and that there are different ways to do it. You know, we could be zipping around the world teaching our own workshops, and we can start to believe our own stuff. You know, we can start to think, yeah, actually, people seem to be connecting with what I'm saying. This as students to all of these different styles to remind us that, wait a minute, there's a lot of different ways to do it. And others need to be exposed to ours. Hellena was bringing up her visits around the Asian community, and I think I've had some of my most dramatically interesting experiences there. So believe me, her K-pop show was something to be seen, and especially in audience reaction, one of the most joyous things I've seen. But also, you know, the experiences in Beijing were really cool. And I'd like to bring up Taiwanese experience, the Guts Improv, who, you know, have almost taken over our Improvention Festival down here the last few years that it's been on, because they present something quite different usually, and seem to have quite a few different things to present to us. For example, leaping off what Cheng said, the first time they came, they showed a whole performance in the opera style. And there were movement styles that we hadn't used at all sorts of, you know, symbols and so on. And it was really, I think at that point, the most different thing that we had seen. And having visited that community, now a lot of their shows are quite different as well. The short form show I saw, for example, is entirely based on having audience in their show in almost every scene. and so on. And it was just completely normal to them. They had an entire audience of people dying to be the one selected to get up and jump into the show. No trying to get volunteers. It was every audience member chomping at the bit to get themselves on stage. And the show, the performances were just as good as, you know, the way to manage it. Oh, like Tandi, it could, you know, having heard so many people, I could go off in a million different directions, but I've been talking too long already. So I'd just like to say that the diversity brings us back to our basics, concentrating on being open to change. But I would just throw in case it doesn't come up, a little bit about the best practice idea too. I guess going to different countries where social development has been in different stages or in different directions. One of the things that's it's been very possible to share and learn from aspects of performance to do with equality, sexual equality, racial equality, and so on, that improve our performances and our teaching no end. So it's been interesting as a student of that to come face to face with your own demons, but also to go to places where, in some cases, it's the first time anyone's ever brought up things like equality. So that's a big thing that globalization has done as well. So I'll leave it at that before I don't.
All right. Well, Joe, I'm going to come to you, but I'm just going to note that so we've had now this is our third recording session of what we've called the COVID-19 Improv Summit, and it has the feel of a virtual conference. But I'm just going to note that this is going to probably feel like the most conferencey thing that I'm going to say in this, is that after Joe finishes, we're going to take a break. You can go see the vendors at their booths, and you can go use the restroom if you need to. We also may have some people who either need a cup of coffee or who need to hit the mattress and go to sleep. But I'm going to ask Joe to finish on this topic, and then we'll take a little break. People on video or on the podcast won't notice it. Other than there may be some folks who just disappear from the screen, and we'll have some follow-up conversation on this, because I know there's tons of thoughts that are flying around here. But Joe, you've been very patient, and like I said, you have all the pressure of summarizing all these great thoughts.
Thank you, Whit, and thanks for having this. That this exists is a consequence of why I do improv and impro in my life. Years ago, I decided that this is what I had to do with my life. And my main reason for doing it has been because I want to make the world smaller. And so I'm really lucky enough that I've performed and met everyone on here prior to this, except for Damlola. And so it's so nice to meet you, Damlola, and someday, Nigeria, man. And I've played with most of you. I also just want to make a mental note for after we come back from break that my friend Jang Gebretatose has only interjected and not fully shared. So maybe as a procedural note for when we come back, we hear a Minneapolis perspective. I have lots of thoughts, and I think I'm going to synthesize down to one so that we can all get to our restroom break quickly. And that is, we are making the world smaller by doing this, and we are making the world smaller by sharing our thoughts like this. And in our differences and in our own cultures, we also find our similarities, because there's something about each person that's here that has made them choose to do improvisation. No matter how it's shown up in their neighborhood, how they ran into it when they were traveling, what flavor it is, whether you're telling stories, whether you're doing playback, whether you're organically exploring something, whether you're doing game, whether you're trying to make an audience laugh, whether you're trying to hook an audience into a narrative structure, a story, whether you're shedding some light on somebody's situation and imagining them in a different situation that's better than the one that they find themselves in. All of us are improvisers. And so, yes, sharing our cultures with each other is really just a condition of building on what we all know about each other. And how great is it that we all know that we're all improvisers and we're all part of one family. And when I've been teaching and when I've been doing shows, I was like Sven, when this first started, I really wasn't interested in just jumping online and improvising. I needed to go, what the hell is happening? And I think we said this on your first thing, Whit. Like, I just needed to connect with people. I needed to talk one-to-one people. I needed to sort of answer the existential question, well, who am I now? I'm a guy that goes places. I'm a guy that gets to, play with Felipe, where the American and the Colombian speak French and improvise poorly, but for some reason people enjoy it. We're all the same family. We all live in the same city. We're all in the same neighborhood, and sharing our cultures is just a way to share how we're similar with each other already. And I think that's the cap I would put on it at this point.
Yeah, very good, very good. I did note, John, we were going to come back to you if you want to speak after the break or now. I will give you that choice.
I'm going to go now because I know how life works. So we don't know what's going to happen here. Well said, I'm so excited now that I fully understand what I want to say. I want to say a couple of things. I like what Patti started speaking out at the top about how it's important, and then we all just kind of added to it this idea of let people make improv whatever it needs to be for them, and the value of that is so crucial. And it started now. I'll talk a little bit about work we've done here in Minneapolis in the USA, and then I'll talk about what I'm excited about and what things I'm hoping to gain from this. A sneak peek, a thing that I'm hoping to gain is to connect Black improvisers worldwide. So it becomes like this Black cookout that we do on Zoom, which could be a lot of fun. Yeah, we do an American version, but how powerful would it be to be able to see somebody like you across the pond or whatever doing just having that shared language of improv. So in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, I just proposed that we have a diversity inclusion director because there's a long history of improv, but you would walk outside our theater doors and it just would look very white. And, so we just wanted to have the stages reflect the city that we're in as a way to kind of, be an art that's going to serve the community. We just wanted to just look like the community it's in, right? Yes, thank you, Patti. Thank you, Patti, for raising the roof. Thank you. It's so weird not to have audios, but I appreciate the visual. This is very great. It takes a lot of courage to talk with everybody on mute. Also, this is new to me to have everybody on mute. So I am learning how valuable it is to be able to speak without not needing a reaction. So also, if you need to just chill, I get it. Thank you so much. In the Twin Cities, we just had we started to get the diversity thing going, and then I have an all-Black team. And the part that was very powerful for us was to be able to speak about social issues and injustice that was happening towards Black people from an all-Black standpoint in improv. And I think there was a lot of people that had done improv who had come from situations, but could speak on these horrible issues, class, sexism, a lot of these things. But for me, I noticed the power of being able to see somebody who, if a cop kills a Black person in America, to see a Black person on stage speaking freely and openly, I realized how powerful that was, and how important it was for everybody in the improv community to not, like we were talking about, poo-poo any sort of like techniques or whatever. If somebody answers their real self on stage versus miming it, that doesn't matter. Their stories is what's important, and hearing their perspective and their livelihood and everything that makes it rich, that was important. And everybody automatically made that jump. And if somebody did go, oh, that's not a real phone, nobody wants to hang out with that person anyway. So whatever. No, but there's incredible value in that, and I'm like really. So now just, so we did like a lot of diversity work. We talked a lot about how we can keep people safe so they can do improv to their best ability, because we know as humans, if we're not feeling safe and secure, it's really hard to think on this. It's hard to think anyway, but if you're scared, you don't want to do no making up anything. And when we have a world that we're in, it would just give a snapshot of 2020, and there's a pandemic, and there's race issues, there's class issues, there's definitely sexism. It's still happening, pandemic or not. And I'm really excited about linking up different folks around the world who share similar struggles, but it just looks like it's different. It's under a different regime or different government or whatever. That's what I'm excited about. Just want to peek in here and just also say my parents are from Eritrea. It is a country in Northeast Africa. It had a civil war with Ethiopia for 30 years. So the idea about like maintaining your own and taking care of everybody united is a very strong principle that I have like in my blood of how you survive a war. So something about this is not the same, but the idea of like us uniting regardless of our differences is very interesting to me and powerful. Yeah, and I really feel like this is a good time for us to, just like in Eritrea during the war, we had 9 different tribes, distinct religion, distinct in language, practices, but we all understood there's one common goal, and the goal is education. I mean, the goal for them was to get their own independence and freedom, but I feel like the goal for us, and I could be just wrong, but it's the same goal it's always been, which is love and educating and informing people and keeping that moving forward. So yeah, I just wanted to share some of those things that have been on my heart, and that what I'm excited for is to link up with everybody. We do have a Black cookout, but it'd be, I don't know when the time is appropriate or right to link up these wonderful Black folks I've never met in person who are all over America, and now I want to take that step into Nigeria. I want to take that step into anywhere across the world. But yeah, I would love to and link people up just based on improv, but also some of their social needs and social justice is an area that I think we all can relate to. So that's it. Thank you.
We'll make sure to put some of the social media links or other ways that people can contact you, John, in terms of that specific initiative on the page. And you can say what's the best way to contact you right now, but we'll link it on the improvcomedyconnection.com page for this and on the YouTube. But what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
I hate to say it, but it's because I've been open for whatever other people need. But right now, email has taken a last place result. Facebook Messenger is at number 1, and then TikTok is at a hard 2. So I can post Facebook Messenger. But yeah, email works too, just John at Huge Theater. But yeah, honestly, Messenger's been way to go.
All right, good. But before we close for the break, we are agreed this is not a phone though, right? All right, well, let's take a quick break. And so I'm going to put the pause button on our recording, and let's do that now. I'm not going to say too much about part 1 because we do have part 2. We did take a little bit of a break, as you heard, and had most of our panelists, although a number had to drop off for a number of reasons, who continued the conversation, and we got into some interesting things that you'll want to check out part 2 for. I've been pleased to be a part of putting this together, the COVID-19 Improv Summit, and putting it out on audio on the Improv Comedy Connection podcast and also on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. And if you want to find more about the podcast and the other episodes of the COVID-19 Improv Summit, those will be on the Improv Comedy Connection podcast. You can find links to everything at improvcomedyconnection.com, as well as find it on the YouTube channel if you'd like to see it in video in the other episodes as well. I'm your host, Whit Shiller. I'm an improviser in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I perform with Fish Sticks Comedy. And again, it has been my pleasure to be organizing this and spending time with these wonderful improvisers. So stick around for part 2 of the COVID-19 Improv Summit on globalization of improv.